Hello Underdogger, it's your boy Underdog Recapped. Before we start, warning, spoilers ahead. Today, we are going to recap an American superhero comedy film released in 2010, called Kick-Ass. It tells the story of an ordinary teenager, Dave, who sets out to become a real-life superhero, calling himself Kick-Ass. How will it turn out for him? Can he finally become a superhero like he wants to be? Let's find out together, in a doggy-styled recap. The movie starts with Dave, an ordinary comic geek teenager who lives in New York. His mundane life revolves around going to school, jerking off, and playing with his friends. One day, he asks his friends at a comic cafe, why no one tries to become a superhero? But, his friends laugh at him and tell him it's impossible and he will likely get killed on the first day. But it doesn't whittle his spirit down, because every time he and his friends get into trouble, people just look at them and don't do anything to help. So, he purchases and modifies a scuba diving suit and arms himself with batons. At a warehouse, a mafia boss named Frank and his crew torture one man because this man tells them that someone in superhero costume just stole their goods. Frank is enraged and tells his crew to finish him off. At another place, a mysterious former cop, Damon, trains his daughter Mindy by shooting his gun at her chest to make sure she knows how it feels like to get shot. During Dave's first patrol, he spots some burglars trying to steal a car. He then switches to his suits and confronts them, but he ends up getting stabbed and getting hit by a car instead. On the way to the hospital, Dave begs the doctor to not tell anyone about his costume. At Frank's place, one of his crew tells him that he is killing the wrong guy, so Frank sends his men to take care of a Russian mobster he believes is responsible. The Russian gets put inside a giant industrial microwave while being questioned by Frank's crew. But, before he could tell them about anything, he explodes. After recovering, Dave's dad gets a little bit confused because the police said that they found Dave with no clothes, so he assumes Dave got raped, and to which he denies. However, after the incident, Dave gains a capacity to endure pain and enhanced durability due to having some bones replaced with metal, and messing up some nerves in his body. Unfortunately, in his absence from school, a rumor spreads that he is gay. As a result, his longtime crush, Katie, immediately attempts to become his friend because she likes to befriend people who is unusual, and Katie thinks Dave is one of them because he is gay. Dave talks to his friends and tells them that he wants to clear up the misunderstanding, but his friends tell him that this is a perfect opportunity to get closer to Katie and befriends her. After that, Dave then returns to be a superhero, starting as a kitty finder. He walks around the town to find the missing kitty and finds it on top of a billboard. He then climbs the billboard, but ends up falling and makes someone trip over his body. The man then gets kicked and beaten up by a gang. Dave tries to break up the fight, but he gets pushed over. He then whips out his baton and tries to fight the gang, but he ends up being the one who gets beaten instead. Dave then looks at a nearby passerby and tells him to call the police. But, this guy tells everyone inside the store about him and makes everyone record Dave's fighting scene. One member of the gang then whips out his knife, but he realizes everyone in the store is looking at them, so they choose to retreat before the cops show up. One of the people then comes to him and asks his name, which he answers, Kick-Ass. Later that day, Dave became the talk of the town because of his video's virality. He then sets up a MySpace account where he can be contacted for help. One day, Katie mentions that a dealer she met at the place she's volunteering at wouldn't leave her alone. Dave convinces her to message Kick-Ass for help. Responding to a request from Katie, later that night, Dave goes to the drug dealer's place and warns him to leave Katie alone or else. The intimidation fails, and the gang members surround him. He tases one of the drug dealers in the forehead but gets pinned to the ground by other men. When this guy takes a knife to stab Dave, Mindy, dressed as a superhero, stabs him from the back with her double-bladed pole arm. She fights all the gang members while Dave scrambles out of the way. She tells Dave that they are on the same team, but a surviving gang member sneaks up behind her and is ready to stab her. Luckily, Damon shows up and shoots him from an opposite building through the head with a sniper rifle, surprising both Dave and Mindy. Mindy thanks her dad and steals all the gang's money. They leave through the window up to the rooftop and Mindy introduces herself as the hit girl and Damon as Big Daddy. After coming home, Dave realizes he is not powerful enough to fight crime, unlike Damon and Mindy in the brawl earlier. At Frank's place, one of his crew informs him of Damon from the brawl earlier. But, they mistake Damon for Dave as they have never met Damon before. So, Frank tells his crew to kill Dave. Later, Damon and Mindy finally find Dave's house by tracking his social media IP address. They support and encourage him to continue being a superhero. Meanwhile, Frank calls a detective and tells him to kill Dave, but the detective refuses as it's outside of his jurisdiction. After he closes the phone, Frank realizes one of his men is late. Turns out, Damon and Mindy had kidnapped Frank's crew and killed him after forcing him to spill out information about Frank's business. In Damon's house, one of Damon's cop friends, Marcus, enters and sees his collection of weapons. He used to be Damon's partner, but Damon was relieved from duty after being framed by Frank. He was sentenced to 5 years in prison for possession of drugs. This led to his wife, who was bearing Mindy at that time, taking her own life. Luckily, Mindy was born safely and was left in Marcus' care while Damon trained at his cell to become a vigilante, vowing revenge against Frank. After getting out of prison, Damon reunited with Mindy and hid away while training her. On the other hand, Frank becomes extremely tense and paranoid because Damon has interrupted his business. One day, while he drives around in his car, he sees a person similar to Dave. Frank then follows him, and beats him to death, mistaking him for the culprit who has interrupted his business. At Frank's place, one of the crew is confused at what he has to do with the person. Chris, Frank's son, then suddenly enters the room and suggests a different approach. He poses as a new superhero, called Red Mist, who just caught one of the drug dealers in the city that turns out to be one of his dad's crew and tries to meet up with Dave. He tells Dave that he got inspired by Dave and wants to be his sidekick. He then brings Dave to enter his car and invites him to fight crime together. He then brings Dave into Frank's lumber warehouse, under the pretense of crime fighting. On the way, Chris calls his dad's crew to prepare for their arrival. However, they find the warehouse on fire. Chris rushes into the building to save his dad's crew, but when he is inside, he finds all of them are dead. Chris then grabs a doll that has a hidden camera in it and gets outside of the building. Dave gets confused as to why Chris saved the doll and not the people, but he rolls with it. Chris and Dave part ways after. Then, Chris rushes to his dad's house and tells him about the doll. To their surprise, they see recorded footage of Damon killing the crew with ease and burning the warehouse down. Realizing that Dave has never been the culprit, Frank then tells his son to ask Dave about Damon's location. Following the event, Dave decides to quit being a superhero. He then goes to Katie's room and reveals his identity. He also clears up the misunderstanding about him being a gay and she forgives him. Suddenly, Chris tells Dave that both of them have a bounty on their head and asks him to seek help from Damon and Mindy. They then agree to meet him at one of their safe houses. Dave tells Chris the location and they drive with Frank's men following them from behind. Upon their arrival, Dave knocks the door and introduces Chris to Damon. Chris enters and sees Mindy sitting by the window. She wants to introduce herself, but Chris grabs his gun and shoots her on the chest, making her fall out. Seeing this, Damon screams while Frank's men rush in and knock Damon and Dave unconscious. Chris orders them to let Dave go since he considers him a friend and not a threat, but they still put him in the back of the car. One of the crew grabs Damon's bazooka from the wall and drags Chris home. Feeling betrayed, Chris protests to his dad that his men go against the deal by involving Dave. Frank explains to him that Damon is important to him for the sake of his business, but eliminating Dave will send a warning to everyone to reconsider becoming superheroes. On the TV, a countdown starts for the unmasking of Dave, and all of the city is watching. Katie watches in excitement, thinking that it's Dave's decision. But, she's shocked as a live video feed on the TV shows Dave and Damon are handcuffed to chairs while masked men, Frank's crew, prepare to torture and expose them. Frank's men ruthlessly hit the two and torture them. While the crew are pouring gasoline on Damon, Mindy, who survived the shot and fall, sneaks into the hideout and shuts down all the lights. Using her night vision goggles, she precisely shoots the men inside with her gun. Unfortunately, one of the crew manages to light Damon on fire, yet as he burns, Damon guides Mindy, allowing her to finish off everyone. Mindy tries to extinguish the fire, but it is too late. She shares one last moment with him before he takes his last breath. After mourning her father's death, Mindy uncuffs Dave, and they return to their hideout. Realizing the danger, Dave attempts to convince Mindy to give up their superhero lifestyle, but Mindy wants to avenge her father. Realizing that it is his fault, Dave agrees to help her. He takes the mysterious weapon that Damon has recently bought and assembled. At Frank's headquarters, his men are on alert, waiting for Dave and Mindy to show up. Mindy knocks on the front door, posing as a schoolgirl. Having never seen Mindy's face before, they let her inside. She acts lost and sad as she tells them she can't find her parents. Convinced, one of the guards kneels to offer his phone, but Mindy stuffs a pistol inside his mouth and shoots him to death. The others act too late as Mindy quickly finishes the rest of them. She then gives a signal to Dave through CCTV. She swaps into her costume and eliminates Frank's men with speed and stealth. Unfortunately, she runs out of bullets, so she resorts to knife fighting. The crew are afraid of Mindy, so they trap her behind a counter and try to shoot the bazooka towards her. As they are about to shoot it, they all hear a mechanical sound from the windows. It is Dave, who's hovering with a jetpack and miniguns attached to it, quickly finishing the rest of Frank's men off. Inside Frank's office, he and Chris listen as the last gunfire subsides, thinking his men have succeeded in killing Mindy. Unlucky for them, Mindy and Dave barge into the office prepared to finish what they had started. Frank commands Chris to fight Dave off, to which he unhappily obliges, while Frank fights Mindy. Dave wields his two batons, while Chris whips out his wooden katana. They fight at the dojo, eventually knocking each other out unconscious at the same time. Mindy fights Frank aggressively but struggles since Frank is also a skilled fighter. Frank's attacks become increasingly dangerous as he beats Mindy, slamming her onto the desk. He grabs a handgun and is about to shoot Mindy. Once more, Dave appears, holding the bazooka and aiming it at Frank. Frank shifts to aim his gun at Dave, but he isn't fast enough. Dave fires the rocket, sending Frank out the window and exploding in the air. Meanwhile, Chris wakes up and pulls a sword, but he is too late as he finds Dave flying off with his jetpack with Mindy. Upon landing, Mindy thanks him, saying Damon would be proud of them both. Mindy finally takes off her wig and mask, showing him her true face and telling him her true identity. The movie ends with Mindy going back to Marcus' care and enrolling at Dave's school. Two bullies attempt to take her lunch money, but Mindy, seemingly excited, smiles and cracks her knuckles. Being a superhero is not just a man that has a superpower, but a man who has the will to help others and protects the good from evil. But, what would you do if you were in Dave's position? Let us know what you think in the comment below. Don't forget to subscribe, and see you in our next recap.